Alright, well now, looks like things can finally get back on track. Not that any of these Viking episodes so far have been bad, but now we can get back to the conquest. Now we can get back to the raid on England. This episode basically, a lot of it was tying up loose ends from previous episodes, namely the Jarl Borg stuff, while also setting up some potential future conflicts for when Ragnar actually goes raiding in England. Now, overall, this was a pretty solid episode, although there were a few minor issues with it. First of all, really good execution scene, by the way. Very eerie, very almost ethereal. It almost seemed like something out of a dream. But I don't. At this point, it's almost been 24 hours since the episode aired, so I don't really think I'm giving too much away by saying that Jarl Borg is executed. But for a while there, they kind of pulled a Ned Stark. You thought he was going to get out. You thought he was going to get off scot-free. You thought they were going to do something to enable him to escape. They pulled a Ned Stark, like in season 1 of Game of Thrones. They imprisoned Ned Stark for a few episodes, kept you thinking he was going to get out, but then just killed him, chopped his head off. Here they kind of try to sow some seeds of doubt into they tried to plant some seeds of doubt into King Horik's mind, and even though the end result was kind of a fake out, certain things leading up to said result felt pretty genuine and felt like they could potentially come back, as I said, in one of those future conflicts, because Jarl Borg is receiving visits from King Horik, who claims to take no pleasure in his execution. And the reason for that, the primary reason anyway, is because basically ever since he's joined up with Ragnar, King Horik's reputation and his ego has been grievously bruised. Because not only does Ragnar's fame basically outshine his own, but also he has basically lost a good chunk of his men because Ragnar left him in England. Now, this makes sense because we have established this guy as a very egotistical idiot. So seeing him, like I said before, they kind of fake you out. They make you think that he's going to turn, and his personality that has been established up to this point leads you to believe that he will set Jarl Borg free. But again, kind of like what they did last episode with Rollo killing Jarl Borg's men and imprisoning him, they kept leading you towards this result, and then all of a sudden they pull the rug out from under you and aim you towards another result. Because in the previous episode, we kept thinking Ragnar was going to join up with Jarl Borg again. They kept trying to rationalize that completely irrational decision, kind of like they are here. They keep trying to support or make the audience believe that King Horik would doubt Ragnar as a leader, and that he would, in theory, consider joining up with Jarl Borg. But again, just like the last episode, I like what they did with it. I wasn't as surprised this time around because I was kind of expecting that. Basically, when King Horik said, "I will free you and we will kill Ragnar Lothbrok together," that's about when I said, okay, they're probably going to do some twist at the end. And it's not because the lead up was bad. I think the primary reason why I saw that coming is because they did a twist similar to it in the previous episode. So if they had spaced these episodes farther apart, then I think I would have had a bit more trouble picking it up. But with that said, it was still a very good twist, and this execution scene, that if it was on HBO or something like that, they would have shown every gruesome detail of this. Because the Blood Eagle is basically, they cut your back open with knives, and then chop your ribs up with an axe, and pull your lungs out and display them out your back so that it looks like you have kind of eagle's wings. Pretty painful way to die. But considering how there must have been some sort of censorship, I'm not saying this scene was squeamish. This was honestly one of the most brutal scenes in the history of the show. But considering that the History Channel, in theory, would not allow the same type of imagery that HBO allows, I think they handled it pretty cleverly. This, like I said, it feels like something out of a dream. And all the characters standing around with this very steely-eyed demeanor, they almost don't look human. Just in the way that they're filmed, in the way that the whole scene is acted. It feels like a bunch of predators, and I don't mean to try and sound poetic or anything, but honestly, all the humans in this scene who are watching this execution just watch it with this real intensity that, like I said, doesn't seem human. And I think it really goes a long way to establish this as a considerably more brutal culture than we're used to in this day and age. So I really liked that scene. It was masterfully done, masterfully filmed. The music was really good. And the whole thing just felt appropriately significant, appropriately dramatic. And the way it builds to that conclusion makes it a great end to the episode. Now, how was the rest of the episode? Well, again, it's kind of setting up conflicts that we could potentially see, because Lagertha comes back as an ally for Ragnar, because Ragnar does take some very sensible advice, and in that he waits to execute Jarl Borg until someone can respond to their need for a new ally. So Lagertha coming back, I thought really fit. It fit with the character, and it was a nice way to keep her character on the show. Now, I am by no means a history buff when it comes to Vikings or Scandinavia as at the time that this show takes place. So I could be omitting some details. I could be acting surprised when really history has already given it away. I don't know, but the way they handle it in the show, I thought really worked. And Lagertha going raiding with Ragnar and his guys again, just like old times. And that point in the last episode where she kind of took command really comes back around and ties into her showing up here. The acting is still very good. The main actors, Travis Fimmel and Clive Standen, are still very good. Catherine Winnick is still very good as Lagertha. Alyssa Sutherland, I have to admit, at first I didn't like, but as she continues to be in more and more episodes, I still don't like her nearly as much as Catherine Winnick, but she's becoming more tolerable. She's becoming more three-dimensional. She's becoming I don't want to say likable, at least not on the same level as Ragnar or Rollo, but she's not irritating as a character anymore. She doesn't scream hypocrite. Her reactions don't reek of hypocrisy like they did at the beginning of the season. So yeah, this is a very solid episode. Again, with the England stuff, with King Egbert forming an alliance with the King of Northumbria, seemed like a very natural instance of escalation, and this will make for a potentially interesting scenario when Ragnar and his guys finally get to England, because Egbert has essentially doubled his forces, and not just to oppose the Northmen. Egbert and the Northumbrian king agree to. I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but they agree to conquer this chaotic other place in England that cannot decide on its ruler. So that's another reason, besides the imminent threat of the Northmen, that really lends a lot of credibility as to why King Egbert would suddenly reach out now for allies, as opposed to not before. So, what did not work about this episode? Well, Floki. And I'm not saying Gustav Skarsgård acted the part poorly or anything. He's still a lot of fun as Floki, and it was nice to see a real advancement in character for him, what with his marriage and all. But it seemed a little out of nowhere when his girlfriend basically said, why don't we tell Ragnar and have him bless our marriage? And Floki's like, no, we're not going to tell Ragnar. Ragnar basically has everything he wants now. He's the Earl. He has allies. He's going raiding. I built ships for him. He does not need to bless my marriage. In retrospect, it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense for this character to all of a sudden. It kind of makes sense for a character like this to say, you know what? With all I've done for him, I don't really think I need to ask him for any favors. I don't really think I need to ask him to bless my marriage, because anyone in his right mind, with any sense of gratitude, would bless my marriage. So in retrospect, it makes sense, but in the episode itself, this is a character who, up until this point, we have basically established as almost unquestionably loyal to Ragnar, and to have him suddenly say, you know what, I don't want Ragnar to bless my marriage, and to basically display his first signs of hostility towards Ragnar without any prior setup, it just seemed pretty sudden. And like I said, I think they could have done a better job setting it up. So yeah, they could have done a better job with that. And from the looks of the promo for next week's episode, it seems like that's going to come back. So I wish that had gotten a better. I wish that plot point had gotten a better introduction, as opposed to the relatively ham-handed way in which it was introduced. And when I say ham-handed, I mean ham-handed for this show. Ham-handed for Michael Hurst, who usually does a pretty good job in setting up all of these subplots. Another minor issue with this episode is the England stuff kind of felt like an afterthought. The stuff in England with Athelstan and King Egbert and the Northumbrian king. They only made up a very small portion of this episode, and considering how significant the events were in Kattegat, in the Viking village, I kind of understood it from that point of view, but from an overall season arc point of view, I think they could have given England a little bit more screen time, because Athelstan the priest didn't get anything to do this time around. At most, we got Ragnar basically wondering, hey, is this guy still alive? Where can I find him? But again, that didn't really go anywhere. It just amounted to Ragnar saying, where is this guy? And the seer basically saying, oh, he's with some guy in England, a man you know. And obviously Ragnar, or at least I hope so, Ragnar can in theory pick up on that and figure out that Athelstan is with Egbert. So that the plot line didn't really go anywhere. At most, it basically established that there's a tougher fight for when they actually go raiding England, because we really have no sense of how big Eckbert's forces are now that he's allied with Northumbria. So a little bit more elaboration on that front would have helped. But overall, this was a very solid episode, like all of the episodes have been this season. And as always, looking forward to the next episode. I'm glad we finally wrapped up this stuff with Jarl Borg. And while I did find it interesting, I'm glad that they didn't drag it out for as long as they potentially could have, to where it would have gotten old. Yeah, so that's about all I got for this week's episode of Vikings. While it did have some flaws, at least in terms of balancing and introducing some of its subplots, it was a very balanced episode. As always, it was a very well acted episode. And one last thing I want to mention. I'm glad some of the characters are actually picking up on some of the subterfuge that's going on, because Ragnar sees Siggy talking to King Horik, so he kind of gets this thought in his head, like, maybe she can't be trusted. We see Rollo question her about why she's been talking to King Horik, and she kind of trying to plant seeds of doubt in Rollo's mind as to what would be most beneficial for him to choose if it ever came down to a conflict between Ragnar and King Horik. So to see the characters basically see through illusions and see through lies like that was pretty satisfying, considering how dumb they could have made these characters. So it was a well written episode for the most part, with some minor issues. Well acted, great death scene for Jarl Borg, and eager to see where they take the rest of the season. So yeah, next up is Hannibal.